Hello and welcome to this history tutorial on the Weimar Constitution. This is for Edexcel GCSE Weimar and Nazi Germany. Today we will cover what the Weimar Constitution was, why it was created and some of its strengths and weaknesses. As we know, in November 1918 the Kaiser had fled Germany and a new temporary government was installed until elections could be held to select a National Assembly. The job of the National Assembly would be to create a new constitution for Germany. If you're unsure, a constitution is simply a set of rules that a government will follow when running the country. The elections were held in January 1919, with the SPD winning 40% of the vote. The Assembly met in Weimar on the 31st of July 1919. They agreed to the new constitution by 262 votes to 75. The new republic, now governed by the constitution agreed in Weimar, became known as the Weimar Republic. The new constitution reorganised the German system of government. The head of the German state was now the president. The president was to be elected every 7 years, and it was the president that chose the Chancellor and was the head of the army. The president was also given the power to dissolve the Reichstag, call elections and suspend the constitution. The Reichstag was set up, which was Germany's parliament. The Chancellor sat at the head of the Reichstag and they selected what laws would be debated in the chamber. In times of emergency, the Chancellor could request that the President pass a law by decree without consultation with the Reichstag. This was known as Article 48. Members were elected to the Reichstag every 4 years using a system of proportional representation. This meant that the proportion of seats a party wins in the Reichstag is the same as the proportion of total votes they win in the election. For example, if the SPD won 25% of the votes, they would have 25% of the seats in the Reichstag. Let's take a look at some of the strengths of the Weimar Constitution. Firstly, it was democratic. Germany for the first time was a democracy, meaning the German people could vote and elect people to represent them. For the first time, women had the right to vote as well as men, and the voting age was reduced from 25 to 21. This was more democratic than Germany had been under the Kaiser, and was even more democratic than Britain at that time. Another strength was that the Reichstag was elected by the system of proportional representation. This was meant to make sure that even the smaller political parties had a fair share of seats in the Reichstag. The system also had in place certain checks and balances, so that no one person or group was too powerful. The President had the power to choose the Chancellor, usually the leader of the largest party. He could also dismiss the Reichstag and call new elections, but he was re-elected every 7 years, so the electorate could choose to change the President. The Chancellor had the power to decide which laws were passed, but these only became law if the majority of the Reichstag voted in favour of them. But the constitution had weaknesses. Even though it was more democratic, it didn't prove to be very efficient. Proportional representation meant that even parties with very small numbers of votes were guaranteed to get in the Reichstag. This meant it was difficult to make decisions as there were so many parties with different views. When a decision couldn't be reached, the President could suspend the Constitution by using Article 48, so he could pass laws without the Reichstag's consent. Article 48 was only meant to be an emergency power, but it became a useful way of getting round disagreements and undermined democracy. In summary, the Weimar Constitution was the new system of government in Germany after the Kaiser abdicated at the end of the First World War. It was perhaps the most democratic and liberal system in the world at that time, as women could vote for the first time and the voting age was lowered to 21. The system had been designed to ensure that no one person or group had too much power. However, proportional representation meant that at times it was difficult to reach a consensus and agreement in the Reichstag, and Article 48 undermined democracy as this allowed for the bypassing of the Reichstag. To get further help, visit history.outwood.com, see your teacher in school, or check out quiz.outwood.com for those sweet revision quizzes. You can also follow the Outwood Humanities team on Twitter at OGATHumanities. Until next time, that was a little bit of history.